Franklin D Roosevelt was the 32nd President of the United States and led the country through World War II, but unlike most presidents, his children would participate in the war. James Roosevelt had initially received a commission in the Marine Corps as lieutenant colonel in 1936 as his father's military aide. However, James resigned this commission in 1939 and joined the reserves as a captain to enter active duty in 1940. And while on a secret world-circling diplomatic mission for his father to ensure support for the Allies in April of 1941, where he met many heads of state and came under German air attack in both Crete and Iraq. In August, James Roosevelt joined the staff of future OSS Director William J. Donovan, who is now the coordinator of information. He had Roosevelt have the job of working out the exchange of information with other agencies. After Japan attacked Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, Roosevelt was seated next to his father when the president delivered his Day of Infamy speech. James requested assignment to combat duty and was transferred to the Marine Raiders in January of 1942, which was a new Marine Corps commando force, and he became the second in command of the 2nd Raider Battalion under Evans Carlson, known as Carlson's Raiders. Despite having occasional health problems, Roosevelt served with the 2nd Raiders at Midway in early June of 1942 and in the Makin Island raid on August 17th to the 18th, 1942, where he and 22 others were awarded the Navy Cross. His citation reads that for extraordinary heroism and distinguished service as second in command of the 2nd Marine Raider Battalion against enemy Japanese armed forces on Makin Island, risking his own life over and above the extraordinary call of duty, Major Roosevelt continually exposed himself to intense machine gun fire and sniper fire to ensure effective control of operations from the command post. As a result of his successful maintenance of communication with his supporting vessels, 2 enemy surface ships whose presence was reported were destroyed by gunfire. Later, during evacuation, he displayed exemplary courage in personally rescuing 3 men from drowning in the heavy surf. His gallant conduct and his inspiring devotion to duty were in keeping with the highest traditions of the United States Naval Service. In October, Roosevelt was given command of the new 4th Raiders, but during training for upcoming combat operations, he became ill enough to be hospitalized in February of 1943. But in August, he served in various staff positions for the duration of the war. However, James was attached to and landed with United States Army's 165th Regimental Combat Team of the 27th Infantry Division during the invasion of Macon on November 20th to the 23rd, and was awarded the Silver Star by the Army for gallantry in action at Macon Atoll. Lieutenant Colonel Roosevelt would often seek out and volunteer for the most dangerous parts of the battle, and throughout the 3-day period he continually accompanied the leading elements of the assault, exposing himself to constant danger. His calmness under fire and presence among the foremost elements of the attacking force was a source of inspiration for all ranks. He was promoted to colonel on April 13, 1944, and was released from active duty in August of 1945, where he was placed on the inactive list in October and remained on the inactive reserves until 1959, where he retired at the rank of Brigadier General. Elliott Roosevelt received a captain's commission in the U.S. Army Air Corps on September 23, 1940, being his 30th birthday, and although there were allegations of nepotism, he served with the 21st Reconnaissance Squadron. In summer of 1941, Roosevelt searched for and located air base sites in Labrador, Baffin Island, and Greenland, and reported on conditions in Iceland and along with the rest of the embryonic Northern Atlantic ferry route. During this time, he coordinated closely with FDR, Prime Minister Winston Churchill, and General Arnold. He would also be the first person to interest Churchill in the idea of U.S. bases in Africa. After a navigator and bombardier course in the fall of 1941 and a brief stint on anti-submarine patrol duty with the 6th Reconnaissance Squadron, Elliott then received a top-secret assignment to carry out clandestine reconnaissance flights over the Sahara Desert with an emphasis on French West Africa, with which the United States was not at war with, known as Project Rusty. During the operation, Roosevelt perfected aerial photography and technical mapping, which would be very significant. He was given command of the new 3rd Reconnaissance Group, which he led during Operation Torch, where he flew over and photographed the area in an RAF Mosquito. Throughout Northern Africa's campaign, from Torch to the fall of Tunis, Elliott would pioneer new reconnaissance tactics, including night aerial photography, and obtained before and after imagery of Rome during the city's first heavy bombing on July 19, 1943. At this time, Elliott would also investigate the warplanes purchasing scandal, but spend a great deal of money on entertainment during the investigation. Afterwards, Roosevelt worked on the shuttle bombing project with the USSR and participated in the May 1944 mission to the Soviet Union, which inspected the new American bases at Poltava, Migorod, and Piratin. His units also supported the D-Day invasion in Normandy and the bombing campaign against V-weapon sites. He flew a total of 89 combat missions, 470 combat hours prior to being called back for his father's funeral in April of 1945, where he didn't return to active combat. At the end of the war, he received the Distinguished Flying Cross, Legion of Merit, and 12 air medals. On the diplomatic front, Elliott would be detached with his brother FDR Jr. to the Atlantic Conference. In January of 1943, Roosevelt also accompanied FDR as a military attaché to the Casablanca meeting and the subsequent Cairo and Tehran conferences in November to December of 1943. Apparently, during a dinner in Tehran, Stalin said that they should round up and shoot 50,000 German officers and technicians to cripple post-war Germany, which Elliott reportedly spoke in favor of as a pro-gamer move. But as Stalin praised Elliott, Churchill said that he would rather go out to the garden and shoot himself. Franklin Roosevelt Jr. was commissioned as an ensign in the United States Naval Reserve on June 11, 1940, and at the request of his father, along with his brother Elliott, he attended both the Argentina Summit with Prime Minister Winston Churchill in August of 1941, as well as the Casablanca Conference, after having previously fought in the 1942 Naval Battle of Casablanca, where he was decorated for bravery. He would also attend the Tehran Conference and return to Argentina, where he sailed with Churchill and stood with him at parades in Iceland to symbolize American solidarity with the British. He became executive officer of the destroyer USS Mayrant, which was bombed at Palermo in the Sicily invasion. The famed war correspondent Quentin Reynolds went out of his way to write about how bravely Franklin performed in the bloody ordeal, in which he was awarded the Silver Star for exposing himself under fire to carry a critically wounded sailor to safety. He was then promoted to the rank of lieutenant commander in March of 1944 and became the commanding officer of the destroyer escort USS Ouvert M. Moore. The ship was then deployed to the Pacific, where it shot down 2 Japanese aircraft and sank a submarine. The Moore was in Tokyo Bay when Japan formally surrendered on September 2, 1945. James Roosevelt remembered that his brother Franklin was known as Big Moose to the men who served under him, and he did a tremendous job during combat. He was discharged in 1946 as lieutenant commander with a Purple Heart, Silver Star, Legion of Merit, and a Bronze Star. John Roosevelt, meanwhile, had initially been a conscientious objector but was convinced by his family to commission in the Navy as a supply officer and would be stationed aboard the aircraft carrier USS Wasp, where during combat he was awarded the Bronze Star and promoted to lieutenant commander for his actions while his ship was being attacked. Anna Roosevelt would also play a role in the war, as she had petitioned to be included at the Yalta Conference as FDR's aide-de-camp, believing that she could best protect her father, seeing to it that he followed the doctor's orders of diet and rest. She attended the conference along with Sarah Churchill, daughter of Prime Minister Winston Churchill, and Kathy Harriman, daughter of the ambassador to Russia. The conference lasted from February 2nd to February 11th, 1945, and she was stated to have been important to FDR both personally and professionally as his aide-de-camp. And that is what President FDR's children did during World War II. Did you know about their wartime service before this video? Is there anything that I left out or should have talked more about? Write in the comments, and thank you for watching.